Get your matcha, get your juice, get your coffee, get your water. We're in for a good one, guys. Hi. Hello. How are ya? Why did I sound like Jeffree Star just now? Anyway, welcome back to yet another episode of Catching Up with Ella, where your host, Ella, myself, yaps about interesting things that are going on in my life, or rather, interesting realizations that I have about life that hopefully inspire or at the very least entertain you. It's also a series where I try to keep the words I use, English words I use, within the most frequent, the most common 3,000 range, so that hopefully you get to also learn something. So you get a little entertained and a little educated. Best of both worlds. Am I right? But let's move on with the content of today, which is the idea of just saying yes. Just saying yes in making friends, in embracing new opportunities. By the way, I'm sweating. I'm actually not in my room. Like, this is kind of an Airbnb situation. I'm out of town for today, so this is a first for me. Like, I'm sweating so hard. Let me change it to a different shirt. All right, so back to what I was saying. For most of my life, it looks pretty monotonous. I wake up, I get to work, which is at home. I get on my computer, and every day kind of just looks the same. If you ever seen the movie Groundhog Day, where Bill Murray, the character, just goes through life being stuck in a time loop, can't get out of it. I feel like that's what most of my life and what most everybody's life is like. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's a reason why it works, right? It's comfortable. You know it. It's in your control. But I think for those of us who are inspiring for something greater, who are just looking for something more interesting, it can't happen when you're just sitting in your living room or when you're doing the same thing all day, every day. So this year, or just recently rather, I made it a mission to periodically take myself out of my comfort zone and just start saying yes. Obviously, it's within reason. Like, if you're walking down a dark alley and some random dude is hollering at you, waving you over, and it's like 1 a.m. in a sketchy neighborhood, obviously you don't want to say yes to that. But in broad daylight, anything that piques your interest, anyone that looks safe enough, just say yes. I'll give you an example, and here's my story. I moved into this, it's not exactly an Airbnb, it's a co-living, co-working place, basically a house where different people reside in. Like, we each have our individual rooms, but in the living room is where we run into each other and introduce ourselves. So I found such a place. I checked in last Thursday. Today is the next Wednesday. I needed to be here for an event that I had going on during the weekend. So I booked a room hoping that it's just going to be smooth sailing. I don't run into each other. I don't bump into each other. We just keep it very chill. Like, I wasn't expecting to socialize with anyone here, even though I have roommates. But I met my housemate Emily the same day. Like, almost immediately we started talking, and then an hour later she's like, "Oh, what are you doing tonight?" And I go, "Oh, I actually have a event planned. I was gonna go see this guy that I found on TikTok. This guy that has like 20 followers, 200 something listeners on Spotify, but I actually liked his music, so I was gonna go see him at 10 p.m. But I was like, that's not until later. Maybe you have something else going on before then that I can go with." And she's like, "Yeah, actually, I do have an event. My friends are giving a panel. Like, she's giving a talk on how creative life or entrepreneurial life is not linear and how she's got to where she is. And there's other female creators, female entrepreneurs that are also on the panel talking about similar journeys." And I was like, that sounds like fun. And she's like, "Really?" Because I wasn't feeling like 100% certain that I was going to go. And I was like, no, you should go and you should bring me with you. Meanwhile, we've only met each other an hour ago. I just invited myself over essentially. But that's the power of saying yes, because sometimes even when there's not an invite and the vibes are vibing, you can just, it doesn't hurt to ask. Like if she just said, no, you can't come, it's a private event, like what's there to lose? What's there to lose? What's there to lose? Doesn't hurt to ask. You lose nothing. You have everything to gain. You made a friend. You could make a friend. You can make more friends. Life is great. Life is great when you say yes. So that's the mentality I had going into it. And I even convinced her to go when she wasn't feeling 100%. I was like, no. Like, we'll learn something and we'll get to meet other people. So we went, and she didn't have a car. I have a car. Thank God, because it was an hour away. Like, LA is so big that on the map, it says, like, everything is in LA, but it's actually probably an hour away, especially during rush hours. But because we had each other in a car, we get to talk on the way there. It didn't feel like an hour. Like, traffic was bad, but it didn't feel like torture like it normally would. So we got there. Her friends were amazing. I learned so much. I didn't pay for a ticket because she knows the organizer. But even if she asked me to pay, I probably would have paid because, people are putting on the show. A lot goes into it. So I probably would have paid. But I got to walk home with a goodie bag. And it has like a hat, a journaling pad, a little snack here and there. And I bought some snacks at the store because it was at a wine store. I didn't buy wine, but I bought like snacks. And I was like, why is it so cheap? Come to find out, my housemate's friend, the owner of the shop, gave me a discount. And I was like, I am just so lucky. Like, I was feeling so grateful, so adventurous, and grateful for myself for saying yes, because normally I would not do anything like this. But because I was out of town, I had this excitement inside me. I was like, I'm gonna make my trip worth it. I'm gonna make every day my best day ever. I just was a lot more open and open-minded. So I went, had a good time, walked home with a goodie bag, walked home with really cheap but quality snacks, and I made a friend. And it got me thinking about how there are the times that I said no. Perhaps I was not explicitly saying no to whoever that is inviting me, but I was personally psych myself out of trying things out, Like yesterday I went to a tea shop here in LA. You probably know already, like there's only one famous tea shop here in LA, but it's a popular spot and the parking usually is pretty horrible, especially on a big event night. Like a lot of people go there at the same time and there's very little parking. So before I even got to the place, I was already dreading it. Like, I had no proof that there was no parking spots there, but I just convinced myself there's no way I can find parking. There's no way. I was so pessimistic. I said no to myself. So I parked deliberately very far from the actual tea shop so that I don't have to drive into the shop and then find out and then back out. Like, I just decided I'm not even gonna try. Again, I said no to myself. And then when I pulled up to the storefront, and come to find out there's an exact spot right in front of the shop that's wide open. And the spot remained open the entire night. So it wasn't like a fluke. If I had got there like 20 minutes late, I still probably would have gotten that spot. But because I said no to myself, I didn't even allow myself the chance to collect evidence. If I had gone in and there's no spots, it takes like 10 seconds to get out of there and find another spot. But there were so many instances, big or small, where I said no to myself, and come to find out the reality isn't like that, isn't as gloomy as I had pictured. And even though I am aware of my tendency to say no, it's so hard to change it overnight, and I don't always catch myself doing that. That's another thing. Like, once you're aware of a problem, you're halfway to dissolving the issue, but a lot of times you're not aware of your limiting beliefs, and you're not aware of how many times you say no to opportunities and people and yourself. So I really want to instill in you this idea of just saying yes. And better yet, put yourself in situations where people get to ask you, or opportunities present themselves, or even seemingly unrelated opportunities. Like, that's why I hate the term networking, because it feels very exploitative. Like, when you go to a networking event, everyone is trying to get something out of you, right? And you have this unspoken agreement that you're there to try to take advantage of each other, where at least go home with something of value, like tangible value. But every day you go to a coffee shop or you run into someone that you know, kind of, but they introduce you to another friend group, or they invite you to a party that you're not super excited about, just say yes, because you never know. A friend could introduce you to another friend. Someone you barely just met could open you up to a brand new world of different ideas, different people, different beliefs. Even on Thursday when I checked in, I hadn't even put my luggage down. Like, I put it down, but I didn't unpack it. Like, my room was undone because I just like threw my stuff on the floor. And if I had not said yes to my housemate, I would have just stayed home and unpacked, and then got bored and got on my phone and watched TV, because I wasn't going to work. I had traveled a long distance. So my night would have been very different and more boring, and I wouldn't have as close a bond with my housemate. The best moments in life are unplanned and spontaneous, but you do kind of have to plan yourself. Let yourself be receptive to those spontaneous moments. If you just sit in your office, in your living room, and every day looks kind of the same, and you don't say yes to yourself, then yeah, it's gonna continue to stay the same. For a while there, that's probably what you need. Like, if you have gone through a traumatic, up and down, chaotic life where you're always traveling, everything is always different, then a little stability is perhaps the antidote to this mess before. But I think for most of us, that's not our concern. I think for most of us, getting out of your comfort zone is more necessary. So yeah, just saying yes is gonna change your life. Trust me.